Yo, so I was gonna do this. Well, I was gonna do this a few days ago, and it got to be a little bit later into the month than I wanted to do this originally. Had some shit going on with my camera. I couldn't get my camera working, so no camera today. But I wanted to do this anyway because there were a lot of albums that I messed with this month. And I might start doing this every month. We'll see if I have the patience to go through with it again. But yeah, this is a little tier list I got going here. Of all the albums I listened to last month. I thought we would go through and talk about them. Got some goated albums here. Actually, let me real quick. Alright, so I got them ordered now in order of when I actually listen to them. So yeah, I think we're just gonna get right into this. So yeah, first album of February is it's not actually called Glut Mother. I always fucking forget that. It's Sisterhood. By Lost Rushi, who I very recently got into, but yeah, I really messed with this album like right away. I think in terms of like sigilcore stuff, this is definitely stands out a little bit more among like kind of the sea of like very interchangeable like sigilcore stuff, which I am into all that, you know, even if it all sounds the same, you know, still fuck with it. I'm not gonna lie, but I think this is probably the best sigilcore project I've heard so far, just because it actually takes that sound and does something unique and interesting with it. And there's actually some decent like songwriting and interesting experimentation and stuff on here. Some more atmospheric tracks, and there's Ouroboros, which is like just a fucking sick, awesome song, just all around. That shit fucking blew me away the first time I heard it. And then you have like just a regular like sigilcore like banger like Hydroxycut, which is like one of, if not my most played song of the year so far. So yeah, overall just like really messed with it. Not like, I'm gonna put it in A, but it's kind of a low A just because it's not like, it's nothing crazy, but it's so fucking solid. And I've been listening to it so much that like I gotta give it the high rate. I gotta put it in A. And then second album, this is like an EP, but this is an Evanora Unlimited EP, which I listened to because I really fucked with Marjorie Sinclair a lot. Like I really fucked with him for a bit. Just in general, I think whatever the fuck he's doing with Evanora Unlimited is really cool. Just like, I don't even know, like he describes it as like I don't even, it's like a multimedia, multi-dimensional fucking, I don't even know. But the music itself is pretty good. I mean, it's like decent. It's very basic, like synth punk stuff. Very just basic, like driving bass lines, shouted vocals, short songs. Nothing you wouldn't expect at all. It's enjoyable, but also I feel like if you didn't know about the whole image that he has with Evanora Unlimited, which if you don't, look it up, because he does a lot of weird shit and it's really cool. But if you're not aware of like that whole image that he has and the music that sort of like accompanies it, I don't know if this would really stick out at all to like the average person, but it is cool, and I did enjoy listening to it. I think this is very just like definitely a C tier, like middle of the road. And then next up is one that I actually have. This one I actually have a lot to say about. Well, I have more to say about this one that might be interesting. This is The Salmon of Doubt, which is an album that a lot of people, or at least a lot of people in my sort of circle of things, really love. And I, just based on like what I saw of it, like rate your music tags or whatever, I was like, this seems like something I'm going to be really into. And I listened to it, and it was not really what I wanted. And I don't think it was bad. Even if I didn't really fuck with some of the songs that I heard, I don't think it's bad. I think there's a lot of cool ideas going on in this album. It's very unique. But there is something about the vocal style that really gets on my nerves. And I sent it to my friend and I described it. I said that it sounds to me like Hobo Johnson. And I know a lot of people would probably fucking kill me if they heard that, but he's doing this like slam poetry thing in a lot of the songs, and it really bothers me because I think some of the lyrics are interesting. I think a lot of the instrumentals are very interesting. I like a lot of the ideas that are at play, but just like in execution, when it all comes together, it feels so sloppy, and like it's trying a little bit too hard to be artsy, which just really bothers me. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that at all. I know a lot of people really love this album and really connect with it, and I did not get that at all from it. But I'm gonna put it next to the Evanora album, just because I do think still like middle of the road. Again, I respect it a lot, and there are parts and bits of it that I like. I think Fools is a really good song. I really like that song, and I wish she went a bit more towards that sort of like ambient stuff. And I think all the sound collage shit going on is cool and interesting, but just like as a whole experience, I did not mess with it as much as I thought I would. But yeah, anyway, next album is actually, I think this is a compilation if I'm not wrong, but this is an album by Rosetta Stone, which is a goth band that my friend put me onto, and it's goated. I'm gonna put it in B. I would say this is a goated album. Very pretty like standard like 80s goth rock shit going on, but just executed really well. Like good songwriting, just like mixed like really in like a really like subtly cool way. Like it's just very atmospheric and like hard hitting. And yeah, it's like I don't really have a lot to say about it. It's very just like what you'd expect from like a gothic rock album. There's nothing too crazy, but it's just like it's a really solid version of that. So it's going in the B. And next up we got a big one. We got Almighty So. This was the first time I ever listened to Almighty So. And I was very excited to listen to it. I was not disappointed. I've been listening to it a lot, and yeah, this album fucking rules. And I feel like most people who are watching this probably already know that it rules. But if you don't know, this is probably the best Chief Keef mixtape. And if you're into like trap music at all, this is like, it's like everything you would want out of like a just straight like trap bangers album. Like, all of the instrumentals are so fucking futuristic and like spacey and good, and the hooks are so catchy, and it's just got this fucking like energy radiating and like smoking off of it, like you're fucking hotboxing the car with Chief Keef the entire time. It's so, it just like takes you in. And I think this is gonna be another A tier. And I honestly might. I'm probably gonna move this down to the B tier, just because it does not. I really, really like this album, but it does not feel right to have it on the same level as Almighty So. But Almighty So is not quite like an S for me. And I know there's gonna be an album later on that is gonna be S. But Almighty So, fucking goated, amazing. Listen to it if you haven't. And then this album, which I'm not even gonna lie, I almost forgot I listened to. I think it's called Blood Parade, by I Slur When I Talk, which is another Sigilcore album, EP, mixtape thing, and it's solid. I don't remember it super well, just because it's really short, and again, like, kind of blends in with a lot of other like Sigilcore shit. But I think from what I've heard of this guy, I do enjoy their stuff. It sticks out to me a little bit more. It's really leans into that like lo-fi aesthetic, very layered, very chaotic. So yeah, I think it's gonna be another C. Nothing crazy, but decent, good album. And then this is a fucking jump to a different mood, but On Silent Death, which is another goated album. Now I'm not super well versed in the like power violence or grindcore or whatever the fuck buzzword term you want to use to call this album. But from what I know, this is like the basic bitch grindcore album. But I messed with it. And I think, I just thought it was really good. Like it's kind of hard to like. It's hard to talk about these kind of like really like short form, like almost like hardcore punk style like metal albums, or just like straight up punk or like emo albums. Just because I feel like there's so little I could like say beyond just like it sounds fucking cool to listen to. But really like just good mixing is like honestly like something that like stood out to me on this one, which is not the kind of thing that I like expected to be like noticing about this album, but I really like it's very dark, and I think that works in the album's favor a lot. It gives it a little bit more flavor, a little bit more personality, which I feel like is important if you're gonna have songs, this short and this not simple, but well, I guess simple, you could say, but still, I think there's some solid solid hooks, solid songwriting on it. Gonna put it in B, just because it didn't blow me away enough to be like in the upper like top shit. And I think just as far as like Power Violence or like those kind of albums go, I feel like something like Orchid, like Dance Tonight, Revolution Tomorrow, is just overall like a little bit more of a memorable album for me, because they don't take the short song structures for granted, and I feel like this album can be a little bit forgettable, but still solid album. And then we have this Liturgy album, Hack. I think that's how you pronounce it. Which I've been trying to get into black metal a little bit more recently, because I got a lot of people I know that really fuck with black metal, and also just been listening to a lot of Cemetery. And I would say this was probably the first, like, I know like black metal purists will maybe like fucking hate me for saying, but like this is kind of the one that like really clicked with me and like connected with me. And yeah, I thought it was very solid. I thought it actually involved some really cool songwriting and good, interesting like build-ups, and just like kept me really engaged, which I feel like just in terms of the black metal stuff I had heard before this, like Dark Throne or like Bathory, kind of lacked that quality. I find Dark Throne to be really boring, and I mostly didn't get bored with this album. I thought the glitch stuff was a little bit tacked on. It did not really feel like it fit with the rest of the album at all, and I thought it would be a little bit. I feel like that's probably my main complaint, is that I knew there was like glitch stuff going into it, and I thought like, oh, it's gonna be like integrated with just the regular like black metal song structures and stuff, and that was interesting. And it like at certain points it is, but it's really just like they have these like piano like glitch interludes, which kind of fuck with the pacing of the album. And I honestly feel like this could maybe be like A tier if it just flowed a little bit better. But I'm gonna put it in the B, just because really solid, really cool album, but it falls a little bit short. And then we got a really goated one. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it right in the A tier right now, which is Atomizer, by Big Black. And prior to hearing this album, I had heard Kerosene a long time ago, and I would probably say it's one of my favorite songs like ever. And listening to it, the full album, it's a little disappointing that I heard what is definitely like the best song on the album before hearing the rest of it. And I was a little worried when I started it, because the first couple songs I was like, oh, this might not be as good as I thought it was going to be. And I like the first couple songs still, and I went back to it and I liked them even more than I did before. But it was a little worrying, but this is a very, very good album, and it does not sound like anything else that you can hear, like, just not even in terms of like noise rock or like industrial, just like I've never heard like a guitar tone that sounds so mechanical and just like just very like industrial in every sense of the word. And even beyond that, just like really good, like just really good songs. Like surprisingly catchy. I guess maybe not surprisingly, because I mean Kerosene again, like really stuck with me. Really catchy song. But yeah, just like really solid industrial, like noise, punk rock, whatever you want to call it. But I don't have quite as much to say about it, because I did listen to this next album, Yank Crime. Listened to it almost right after, and this is another noise rock album, and this album is fucking amazing. This album is so good, and again, this was an album that I had heard a song from like a while before I had heard the full album, and that song was Golden Brown, and I really loved it. It was probably one of my favorite songs. But with this album, it was a very different experience. I was just going through, and every single song that came on, I was just like, holy shit, this is even better than the last one. And I still don't think I could choose like a favorite song from that album, because just every single time I like re-listen to each different song, it just fucking hits, and it just hits like I'm hearing it for the first time. It's just everything about it is so good, and I guess the only thing I can say about it that like I don't just completely love is the lyrics, and that's not even to say I don't like the lyrics. It's just like I haven't really taken the time to look into a lot of the lyrics on a lot of the songs, but you know, everything I've heard I think is, you know, cool lyrically, but it's nothing like crazy. But just like purely from just a like caveman brain, like just straight like noise rock banger like perspective, this is like as good as it gets. And again, just in terms of like songwriting, like, oh my god, there are some moments that just like blew me away, especially on like the longer form songs. Like they get really creative with it. And even on like the shorter songs, something like Golden Brown, like it's so dynamic, and like there's so much going on in every song that like it never gets boring, and that's why it makes it so interesting to revisit like over and over and over again. And it just doesn't, because of that like songwriting, and because of the way that it flows so well, like despite the fact that every song is, you know, really noisy, really high energy, like you don't get burnt out, and it does not get boring. And I just can't stop listening to it. And yeah, this is a fucking S tier. I really love this album. So next album we got here is another fucking black metal album that I don't know how to pronounce the name of. But I'm gonna attempt. I think it is Paysage d'Hiver by it's self-titled actually. And I actually think I like this better than the other one I heard. I think this is probably my favorite black metal album that I've heard. And I think that's because they really honestly do kind of the opposite of what that Liturgy album does, which instead of, you know, going more into like dynamic song structures and stuff like that, it really leans into that like lo-fi ambient soundscape thing. And I think I really mess with that. And I think that's, at least for me, is probably what's most appealing about black metal. Um, a lot of this album is just, like screamed vocals and guitars and drums all just kind of washed and glued together into sort of just like one wall of sound. And it makes it like, it's a very weirdly relaxing experience almost. I listened to this while I was walking in the snow, and it was just perfect. So yeah, I really liked this one, and it's honestly close to an A. I'm gonna put it in the B for now, just because I think, since it is almost, like, at least to me, like basically almost an ambient record, I feel like I need to re-listen or sit with it a little bit more, before I can like, really fully like love it. But yeah, great album, and yeah, I hope I can find some more black metal stuff like this, because I really messed with it. And then we got not another, I don't know what I'm talking about. But we got a compilation here, a Misfits album, Static Age, which is goated. I think after doing a little bit of research into the Misfits catalog, which is very weird, and they have a lot of compilations and a lot of albums with repeated songs and shit. And after just listening through a lot of their stuff, I can say this is probably their best album, just in terms of like compiling a group of like hits and like good deep cuts, and just like all the songs you would want on like a classic Misfits album. And yeah, it's really good. I mean, I feel like pretty much everything you would want or expect out of this sort of like horror punk sound. And it reminds me a lot of Dead Kennedys, but I love Dead Kennedys. And I think obviously they're doing something a little bit different aesthetically, and I think that really separates it from me. And I think, again, something I was sort of talking about, I don't remember what album I was talking about, but I feel like when it kind of comes to these like short form song structures, you gotta have something just flavor wise that's gonna set it apart, even if you have, really good, mixing, cool hooks, whatever. You gotta have something that's gonna, at least for me, like make it something worth returning to. And I think this is like the best example of doing that, like purely aesthetically. I think that makes it really interesting, and honestly, I'm gonna put it in the A tier, because I really enjoyed it. All right, and second to last album here, it's gonna be The Mollusk by Ween, and this was my first time hearing this front to back, but I've definitely been exposed to a lot of parts of this album just through like both just like being a Ween fan already, and like, Ocean Man obviously is like incredibly popular, and also just from like my dad playing this for years. But great album. I think a lot of people would probably say this is the best Ween album, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it's definitely, I would say, I think this is probably the best introduction to Ween, just like as a band. Just because conceptually this is obviously doing something very different than a lot of their albums, but I think that makes it maybe a bit of a good introduction, just because it gives you a good idea of like everything they're going for with their vibe, and you know, how seriously they take themselves, but also how they're actually able to, you know, craft some interesting songs and some unique songs, and you know, take an aesthetic and do something really interesting with it. So yeah, I'm gonna put this one in the A tier. Not a lot more to say about it, honestly. But yeah, really solid album. And if you fuck with sea shanties, then give it a listen. And then I got the last one here. I'm putting it in F. No, this is a goated album. This is actually a really goated album. And I was not really prepared for how much I was gonna love this and how much I was going to come back to it, even though it hasn't obviously been that long since I've heard it. This is the last song I listened to last month. It's just stuck with me so much, and I think for like an instrumental album to do that is pretty special. And this is definitely a special album and a unique album, both in terms of just the sound. Even though it was very influential, I feel like nobody really has used dubstep or just electronic music in general to do something this moody and just like take you to such a different place. It captures such a specific feeling and energy that I don't think you can really capture with any other form of music. And I think that makes it very special in a lot of different ways. It's also just very, for the fact that it's, you know, almost entirely instrumentals besides, you know, sampled vocal clips or whatever. This is a very emotional album, and it, you know, it very much resonated with me a lot in ways that I didn't expect, and it kind of crept up on me. And I think I'm gonna also put this one in the S. I really loved this album, and I didn't expect it to hit me in the way that it did, but I've had a few nights these past couple weeks just driving around and listening to this album and just letting it hit me. And yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. Yeah, so you can I guess you can tell me what you think of these albums. You can tell me if you think I'm wrong, or laugh at me, or tell me that you think I have the most goated taste, or whatever. Yeah, those were all my albums. So yeah, I guess that's the end of it. I don't really know how to end videos.